What's the return on the investment of our security assistance to Ukraine?
Senator, I would just say, given the approach of President Trump, that's not the headline, regardless. The previous administration, under the Obama administration, Crimea was invaded, and we gave them blankets. Under President Trump, during his first term, he gave the Ukrainians javelins, and the Russians did not invade. Under Biden, the Russians did invade, and aid was slow-walked incompletely, and as a result, it became a gridlock. Thankfully, the javelins that President Trump provided actually stalled the Russian advance. Now we are at a place where Vladimir Putin knows that President Trump is strong. He knows his word means something, and as a result, a negotiated peace in Ukraine makes America look strong, makes us look like we understand the state of the world and where we want to be focused, even if we understand that Russia's the aggressor and we applaud the efforts of the Ukrainians. There is a moment where you have to recognize what exists on the battlefield and that a better outcome is a negotiated peace to stop the killing and stop the slaughter. And our budget reflects that perspective.
If I may, Mr. Secretary, I'm not here to defend the previous administration.
Welcome back to Right View Nation, the place where truth still matters and the American spirit never backs down. Folks, grab your coffee, buckle up, and brace yourself, because what we just witnessed in this so-called discussion about Ukraine, Russia, China, NATO, and America's standing in the world is nothing short of a masterclass in political gaslighting, brought to you by the usual suspects in D.C. Let's break this down as true American patriots. The Secretary admits it, Russia is the aggressor. But instead of answering directly and forcefully who we want to win, we got the same old spin. We're committed to peace. Peace. Folks, that's political code for we're negotiating with tyrants while pretending we're in control. Under President Trump, there was peace through strength. We didn't tiptoe around aggressors. We called them out, armed our allies, and made it crystal clear. America leads or chaos reigns. And let's talk about China. This administration now admits that China wants Putin to win and would rather see a prolonged war to distract us from their own global ambitions. No kidding. We've been shouting that from the rooftops for years. But who made China and Russia best buddies again? The weak, globalist policies of Obama and now Biden. President Trump had both of them second-guessing their next moves. He squeezed China with tariffs, held NATO accountable, and kept Putin behind his own borders. But now we're sending billions overseas while China gets bolder, Russia gets bloodier, and American taxpayers get stuck with the bill. Let's talk dollars and cents.
Mr. Secretary, probably won't surprise you, but I'm going to start with Ukraine. And I'm going to ask you a series of questions, but I don't want you to linger on any one of them, but answer the series of questions in one answer. Number one, who's the aggressor and who's the victim in the conflict?
Russia is the aggressor.
Which side do you want to win?
As we've said time and time again, this president is committed to peace in that conflict. Ultimately, peace serves our national interests, and we think the interest of both parties, even if that outcome will not be preferable to many in this room and many in our country.
Which side is President Xi pulling for?
Well, as was stated by both of you, we obviously understand, unfortunately, under this administration and the policy, under the previous administration and the policies they pursued, it has driven Russia and China closer together. So there's no doubt that China would prefer that Vladimir Putin have a good outcome. But it would also prefer a prolonged conflict that would keep us and other countries tied down and incapable of paying attention to the malign influence of China elsewhere.
One thing I'm sure we agree on is we don't want a headline at the end of this conflict that says Russia wins and America loses. And given the fact that all of our adversaries are communicating with each other, that's extremely important if we're going to continue to play the role in the world that the vast majority of members of Congress think we should still play, particularly now that our adversaries are more significant than they have been since the Berlin Wall came down. With regard to the money we're spending, what's the return on the investment of our security assistance to Ukraine?
Senator, I would just say, given the approach of President Trump, that's not the headline, regardless. The previous administration, under the Obama administration, Crimea was invaded, and we gave them blankets. Under President Trump, during his first term, he gave the Ukrainians javelins, and the Russians did not invade. Under Biden, the Russians did invade, and aid was slow-walked incompletely, and as a result, it became a gridlock. Thankfully, the javelins that President Trump provided actually stalled the Russian advance. Now we are at a place where Vladimir Putin knows that President Trump is strong. He knows his word means something, and as a result, a negotiated peace in Ukraine makes America look strong, makes us look like we understand the state of the world and where we want to be focused, even if we understand that Russia's the aggressor, and we applaud the efforts of the Ukrainians. There is a moment where you have to recognize what exists on the battlefield and that a better outcome is a negotiated peace to stop the killing and stop the slaughter. And our budget reflects that perspective.
If I may, Mr. Secretary, I'm not here to defend the previous administration. They were completely inadequate anyway. And I think you could make an argument that the precipitous withdrawal from Afghanistan was like a green light to Putin. But we are where we are. And beating up the past is not a plan for going forward to the future. What has benefited the United States, I think you would agree, 38 different states have produced weapons or parts of weapons out of the money that the Ukraine supplemental package passed last year. 2 new members of NATO now increased spending by virtually all of our NATO allies, which President Trump deserves part of the credit for encouraging that. Vladimir Putin probably guaranteed it would happen. Everybody seems to be moving in the right direction. And then they look at us and wonder whether we're in the midst of brokering what appears to be allowing the Russians to define victory. I think victory is defined by the people that have to live there, the Ukrainians. And I don't think they're going to ever conclude that victory means basically adopting the Russian views on all this. So what do you make of what the Russians are up to? They don't seem to me to be too interested in talking. We want to talk. They seem to be increasing the war. What's your take on that?
Well, no one's adopting views, sir. I would say that the budget reflects the reality that Europe needs to step up more for the defense of its own continent. And President Trump deserves the credit for that. In his first term, in this term, we're about to go to The Hague, where we hope most European NATO countries are going to commit to a 3.5, 1.5 total of 5% defense spending, which was inconceivable before President Trump. And he has set the standard that America can't be everywhere all the time for everybody. And if you're a European country, you cannot freeload off of the United States in perpetuity. You are our allies and our friends, and we will stand with you, but you need to stand up in times of peace and in times of war. And this budget reflects that it's long overdue Europe does more, and that we be strategic about the outcome there, even if it's not preferable for all parties, so that our focus can turn, as was mentioned by everybody thus far, to the Indo-Pacific and our pacing threat, while Europe ensures peace on that continent. And so the budget is meant to reflect that reality. It includes hard choices. But that's been one of the things we're trying to do in this Defense Department, is make some of those hard choices alongside President Trump.
Yeah, the only thing I would say to conclude this before turning over to Senator Coons, relitigating the past, it seems to me, is not helpful. I didn't defend any of the submissions, budget submissions that the previous administration made. I had a lot of the same complaints about how they were handling this. I want to avoid that for the future. And it seems to me pretty obvious that America's reputation is on the line. Will we defend democratic allies against authoritarian aggressors? That's the international concern that I have about this. And I think a number of my members share that view.
What are we getting for all this money we're throwing into Ukraine? Oh, sure, they'll say. 38 states have weapons factories working. Great, but how many of our veterans are homeless? How many of our border agents are overwhelmed? How many Americans are dying from fentanyl while we send billions to a proxy war? Here's the truth. America first has become America last. And every dollar we send overseas without a solid, strategic return is a dollar stolen from our struggling families and national security. The hypocrisy is staggering. Under Obama, Crimea was taken, and all we gave Ukraine were blankets. President Trump, he sent javelins, real weapons, real deterrence. And guess what? Russia didn't invade. Then came Biden. Aid was slow-walked. Bureaucracy stalled everything. And suddenly, boom, invasion. Coincidence? I don't think so. Let's be honest. Weakness invites war. Strength prevents it. President Trump's clear resolve kept Putin in check. Biden's confusion unleashed chaos. Now they're talking about negotiated peace like it's some kind of genius plan. But let's be real. Negotiated peace under Biden doesn't mean an end to war. It means Russia keeps what it took, and America walks away looking soft and divided. That's not leadership. That's surrender disguised as diplomacy. A real deal means Ukraine's sovereignty is restored, and America's dominance is unquestioned. One bright spot? NATO is finally waking up. 2 new members, increased spending, and countries stepping up. But why? Because President Trump shamed them into it. He said what no career politician dared say. Pay your share or lose our shield. And guess what? They listened. Now the current administration is riding that wave and pretending it's their win. Give credit where it's due. Trump shifted the global balance. And now they're admitting what we've been saying for decades. Europe needs to defend its own backyard. We're done being the ATM and military for freeloaders. Our troops are exhausted. Our resources are stretched thin. We're $34 trillion in debt, and yet they still expect us to babysit Europe while they sip lattes and scold us on climate change? No thanks. We'll always defend freedom, but not alone. And here's the crux of it. Our enemies are watching. China, Iran, North Korea. They're all gauging whether America will defend its allies or fold like a cheap tent. This isn't just about Ukraine. It's about the posture of the United States on the world stage. Will we stand with democracies under attack, or cave into dictators with nukes and ambition? The world remembers what happened under Trump. They respected us. They feared us. Now they pity us. It's not about blame anymore. It's about action. The current administration wants to keep pointing fingers at the past because they have no solutions for the future. But let me tell you something, patriots. America doesn't run from challenges. We charge into them. We don't back down. We don't bend over to Beijing. And we sure as hell don't fund wars indefinitely without results. So here's the message. The path forward is clear. Secure our borders. Support our troops. Demand accountability abroad. And if Europe wants peace, let Europe start pulling its weight. We support our allies, but not at the cost of American lives, American dollars, and American sovereignty. It's time to lead again, not with apologies, not with weakness, but with unapologetic strength and vision. Because this isn't just about Ukraine. It's about who we are as a nation. And here at Right View Nation, we say loud and clear. America first. America strong. America always. If you agree, smash that like button, subscribe, and share this with every patriot who's tired of globalist lies and spineless politics. Right View Nation, signing out. Stay bold. Stay free. Stay American.